Two men, two empires, one question. Who changed history more? Meet Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar, legendary conquerors who shaped our world. Welcome back to Learn English with Stories 365. Don't forget to subscribe for more interesting stories every day. Did you know Alexander named 20 cities after himself, and one after his horse, and Caesar? He was kidnapped by pirates as a young man, then hunted them down and crucified them. These men didn't just fight battles, they became legends. Alexander once said, "I am not afraid of an army of lions led by a sheep. I am afraid of an army of sheep led by a lion." And Caesar famously declared, "Veni, vidi, vici." I came, I saw, I conquered. Both died young, but their empires lasted centuries. How? Was it their courage, their strategies, or something deeper? By the end of this video, you'll know their secrets, learn powerful English lessons from their stories, and decide who's your hero. Let's begin. Part 1. The Highlight Reel. Let's start with the greatest moments of these two legends. Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar achieved impossible things. Their stories are full of adventure, danger, and lessons for us today. First, meet Alexander. By age 30, he conquered 90% of the known world, from Greece to India. His army followed him across deserts, mountains, and rivers. Why? Because Alexander led by example. He fought beside his soldiers and shared their struggles. One of his most famous moments? The Gordian knot. This was a giant, tangled rope. A prophecy said whoever untied it would rule Asia. Alexander didn't waste time. He cut it with his sword. His lesson: small actions create big change. Now let's turn to Julius Caesar. While Alexander conquered land, Caesar conquered hearts and minds. He didn't just win battles, he wrote about them. His books made him famous across Rome. His greatest victory? The Gallic Wars. Caesar defeated tribes in modern-day France, but he also built roads, cities, and alliances. His lesson? Words can be stronger than swords. His famous phrase, Veni, vidi, vici, which means I came, I saw, I conquered, shows his confidence. But Caesar's real power was strategy. When he crossed the Rubicon River with his army, he knew there was no turning back. That bold move changed Rome forever. Both men changed cultures forever. Alexander spread Greek language, art, and science wherever he went. Caesar transformed Rome from a republic to an empire, spreading Latin, the root of English, Spanish, and French. But here's a big difference. Alexander destroyed cities that resisted him. Caesar? He often rebuilt them, winning people's loyalty. Alexander's empire broke apart after his death. But Caesar's ideas shaped Europe for centuries. So who was greater? The answer is complicated. To truly understand, we need to look at their origins, battles, and mistakes. But first, let's learn some powerful English words from their stories. Unite, verb, to bring people together. Alexander united his army with courage. Ambition, noun, a strong desire to succeed. Caesar's ambition made him powerful. Legacy, noun, what someone leaves behind after death. Both leaders left a huge legacy. Expand, verb, to make larger. Alexander expanded his empire to India. Revolution, noun, a big change. Caesar started a revolution in Rome. Here's a useful phrase from their stories. Against all odds means succeeding when it seems impossible. Alexander won against all odds in Persia. And leave your mark is to do something memorable. Caesar left his mark on history. Now let's look at grammar. Notice how we use the past simple tense for their actions. Alexander conquered cities. Caesar wrote books. Simple, right? Next, we'll explore their early years. How did a young prince from Macedonia become the Great? Why did Caesar risk everything to cross the Rubicon? The answers might surprise you. And remember, every part of their stories teaches us new English words. Ready to continue? Let's go. Part 2. Alexander's background. Let's start with Alexander's early years. He was born in 356 BC in Macedonia, a small kingdom north of Greece. His father, King Philip II, was a strong leader who united Macedonia. But Alexander's real hero? His teacher, Aristotle, one of the greatest philosophers in history. Aristotle taught Alexander about science, philosophy, and the importance of curiosity. This education shaped Alexander into a brilliant thinker and a fearless warrior. By age 16, he was already leading armies. But his journey to greatness wasn't easy. When his father was assassinated, Alexander became king at just 20 years old. Many people doubted him. They thought he was too young, too inexperienced. But Alexander proved them wrong. One of Alexander's most famous stories is about his horse, Bucephalus. This horse was wild and untamed. No one could ride him. But Alexander noticed something others didn't. Bucephalus was afraid of his own shadow. So Alexander turned the horse toward the sun, calming him. From that day, Bucephalus became Alexander's loyal companion in battle. This story shows Alexander's intelligence and courage. He didn't just follow rules, he found creative solutions. Alexander's first big challenge was uniting Greece. The Greek city-states were often at war with each other, but Alexander used a mix of diplomacy and force to bring them together. Then he set his sights on the Persian Empire, the superpower of the ancient world. Persia was huge, rich, and powerful. But Alexander believed in his destiny. He once said, "I would rather live a short life of glory than a long life of obscurity." And he did just that. Alexander's army was small but incredibly disciplined. They used a formation called the phalanx. Soldiers stood close together with long spears, creating a wall of protection. This strategy helped them defeat much larger armies. One of Alexander's greatest victories was at the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BC. Against all odds, he defeated the Persian king, Darius III, and took control of the empire. But Alexander didn't stop there. He marched east, conquering lands as far as India. Along the way, he founded cities, spread Greek culture, and even married a Persian princess to unite his empire. His dream was to create a world where East and West lived together in harmony. However, Alexander's ambition had a dark side. He pushed his army too hard, marching them across deserts and mountains without rest. Many soldiers grew tired and homesick. After 10 years of constant fighting, they refused to go further. Alexander was forced to turn back. On the way home, he fell ill and died in Babylon at just 32 years old. His death shocked the world. Without a clear heir, his empire quickly fell apart. But his legacy lived on. The cities he founded, like Alexandria in Egypt, became centers of learning and culture. And his story inspired countless leaders for centuries to come. Now let's learn some English words from Alexander's story. First, tutor, noun, a private teacher. Aristotle was Alexander's tutor. Second, diplomacy, noun. Solving problems through negotiation, not war. Alexander used diplomacy to unite Greece. Third, formation, noun. A special arrangement, like the phalanx. Fourth, harmony, noun. Peaceful coexistence. Alexander dreamed of harmony between East and West. And fifth, heir, noun. A person who inherits power or property. Alexander had no clear heir. Here's a useful phrase, against all odds, succeeding when it seems impossible. Alexander won against all odds at Gaugamela. And leave your mark. Do something memorable. Alexander left his mark on history. Now let's look at grammar. Notice how we use the past simple tense for Alexander's actions. He conquered Persia. He founded cities. Simple, right? Next, we'll meet Julius Caesar. How did a young Roman rise to power? What challenges did he face? The answers might surprise you. And remember, every part of their stories teaches us new English words. Ready to continue? Let's go. Part 3. Julius Caesar's background. Now, let's meet Julius Caesar. Born in 100 BC, Caesar grew up in a time of chaos. Rome was a republic ruled by the Senate, but corruption and inequality were everywhere. Caesar's family was noble but not rich, so he had to work hard to rise to power. As a young man, he was known for his intelligence and ambition. He studied law and became a brilliant speaker, but his journey to greatness was full of danger. When he was just 25, pirates kidnapped him. They demanded a ransom, but Caesar didn't panic. He joked with the pirates, even telling them he'd return to crucify them. And guess what? After his release, he did exactly that. This story shows Caesar's confidence and determination. He always kept his word. Caesar's early career was all about politics. He became a popular leader by supporting the poor and challenging the rich. His speeches were powerful, and people loved him for it. But not everyone was happy. The Senate saw him as a threat. To protect himself, Caesar formed an alliance with two other powerful men, Pompey and Crassus. Together they ruled Rome as the first triumvirate. But alliances don't last forever. Caesar knew he needed more power to achieve his dreams. So he took a bold step. He became governor of Gaul, a region in modern-day France. Gaul was wild and dangerous, full of tribes that didn't want Roman rule. But Caesar saw an opportunity. Over 8 years, he conquered Gaul, defeating tribes and expanding Rome's territory. He didn't just fight, he built roads, cities, and alliances. He also wrote about his victories in his book, Commentaries on the Gallic Wars. This made him famous across Rome, but his success made enemies. The Senate feared his growing power and ordered him to return to Rome without his army. Caesar faced a choice: obey and risk losing everything, or defy the Senate and start a civil war. He chose defiance. In 49 BC, Caesar crossed the Rubicon River with his army. This was illegal. Generals weren't allowed to bring armies into Rome. But Caesar knew there was no turning back. He famously said, "The die is cast." This meant the decision was made, and he had to see it through. The civil war that followed changed Rome forever. Caesar defeated Pompey and his allies, becoming the most powerful man in Rome. He was named dictator for life, a title that gave him absolute power. But Caesar didn't just want power. He wanted to reform Rome. He introduced new laws to help the poor, reformed the calendar, and planned more projects to improve the empire. However, not everyone supported Caesar. Many senators thought he was too powerful. On March 15, 44 BC, known as the Ides of March, a group of senators stabbed Caesar to death in the Senate. His last words, "Et tu, Brute," which means "you too, Brutus," show his shock at being betrayed by his friend. Caesar's death plunged Rome into chaos, leading to another civil war. But his legacy lived on. His adopted heir, Octavian, became Rome's first emperor, starting the Roman Empire. And Caesar's name became a title for rulers, like the German Kaiser and Russian Tsar. Now, let's learn some English words from Caesar's story. First, ransom, noun. Money demanded for a prisoner's release. Caesar's ransom was paid by his family. Second, alliance, noun. A partnership for a common goal. The first triumvirate was an alliance. Third, reform, noun. A change to improve something. Caesar introduced many reforms. Fourth, dictator, noun. A ruler with total power. Caesar was named dictator for life. And fifth, betrayal, noun. Breaking trust. Caesar's assassination was a betrayal. Here's a useful phrase. Cross the Rubicon. Make a decision you can't undo. Caesar crossed the Rubicon when he defied the Senate. And the die is cast. The decision is made. Caesar said this before the Civil War. Now let's look at grammar. Notice how we use the past simple tense for Caesar's actions. He conquered Gaul. He wrote books. Simple, right? Next, we'll compare their leadership styles. How did Alexander inspire his army? What made Caesar's strategies so effective? The answers might surprise you. And remember, every part of their stories teaches us new English words. Ready to continue? Let's go. Part 4. Leadership Styles. Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar were both incredible leaders, but their styles were very different. Let's explore how they inspired their armies, made decisions, and faced challenges. First, Alexander. He was a hands-on leader. He didn't just give orders from behind. He fought beside his soldiers. This earned him their loyalty and respect. Alexander believed in leading by example. During long marches, he walked with his men, even in the hottest deserts or coldest mountains. He shared their hardships, ate the same food, and slept on the ground like them. This made his soldiers feel valued and motivated. They weren't just fighting for a king. They were fighting for a friend. Alexander also had a vision that inspired his men. He wanted to create a world where East and West lived together in harmony. This wasn't just about conquering land, it was about spreading Greek culture and ideas. His soldiers believed in this dream, which kept them going even when they were far from home. But Alexander's leadership had a downside. His ambition sometimes blinded him. He pushed his army too hard, ignoring their exhaustion. After 10 years of constant fighting, his soldiers refused to go further. This shows that even the greatest leaders need to listen to their people. Now, let's look at Julius Caesar. His leadership style was more strategic. Caesar didn't fight on the front lines as often as Alexander, but he was a master of planning and organization. He knew how to use rewards and punishments to motivate his army. For example, he shared the spoils of war with his soldiers, making them rich and loyal, but he also punished disobedience harshly. This mix of carrot and stick kept his army disciplined and focused. Caesar was also a brilliant communicator. He wrote detailed accounts of his campaigns, which made him famous across Rome. His soldiers knew they were part of something historic, which boosted their morale. One of Caesar's greatest strengths was his logistics, the ability to organize supplies and movements. He built roads, bridges, and fortifications quickly, ensuring his army always had what it needed. This made him unstoppable in battle. But Caesar's leadership also had flaws. His ambition made him enemies. He often ignored the Senate's authority, which led to conflicts. And while his soldiers respected him, they didn't always feel the same personal connection as Alexander's men. This shows that leadership isn't just about strategy, it's also about relationships. So who was the better leader? It depends on what you value. Alexander's personal connection with his army was unmatched, but his ambition sometimes went too far. Caesar's strategic mind and organizational skills were incredible, but his ambition made him enemies. Both leaders teach us important lessons. Lead by example, but don't forget to listen. Be ambitious, but don't lose sight of your people's needs. And always have a clear vision, because a leader without a dream is like a ship without a rudder. Now let's learn some English words from their leadership styles. First, loyalty, noun, faithfulness to a person or cause. Alexander's soldiers showed great loyalty. Second, discipline, noun, training to follow rules. Caesar's army was known for its discipline. Third, vision, noun, a clear idea of the future. Alexander's vision inspired his men. Fourth, logistics, noun, the organization of supplies and movements. Caesar's logistics were brilliant. And fifth, morale, noun, the confidence of a group. Good leaders boost morale. Here's a useful phrase. Lead by example. Show others how to act by doing it yourself. Alexander led by example in battle. And carrot and stick, using rewards and punishments to motivate. Caesar used this approach with his army. Now let's look at grammar. Notice how we use the past simple tense for their actions. Alexander fought with his men. Caesar organized supplies. Simple, right? Next, we'll explore their cultural impact. How did Alexander spread Greek ideas? What did Caesar do for Roman culture? The answers might surprise you. And remember, every part of their stories teaches us new English words. Ready to continue? Let's go. Part 5. Cultural Impact. Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar didn't just conquer lands, they changed cultures forever. Their influence can still be seen today in language, art, and even the way we think. Let's start with Alexander. His dream was to create a world where East and West lived together in harmony. He didn't just conquer cities, he built them. Over 20 cities were named Alexandria, including the famous one in Egypt. These cities became centers of learning and culture. Alexander encouraged his soldiers to marry local women, blending Greek and Eastern traditions. This mix of cultures is called Hellenism, and it spread Greek ideas across the known world. One of Alexander's greatest legacies was the spread of Greek language and science. Greek became the common language of trade and education, making it easier for people from different cultures to communicate. The Library of Alexandria, founded in Egypt, became the largest collection of knowledge in the ancient world. It housed works on philosophy, mathematics, and medicine, preserving Greek ideas for future generations. Alexander's empire didn't last long after his death, but his cultural impact did. Even today, we study Greek philosophy, use Greek words in science, and admire Greek art and architecture. Now, let's turn to Julius Caesar. While Alexander spread Greek culture, Caesar helped shape Roman culture. Rome was already a powerful republic, but Caesar's reforms made it even stronger. He introduced the Julian calendar, which was so accurate that it was used for over 160 years. Many of the months we use today, like July, named after Caesar, come from this calendar. Caesar also built roads, bridges, and aqueducts, connecting the empire and improving life for millions. These projects weren't just practical, they showed the power and glory of Rome. Caesar's biggest cultural impact was the spread of Latin. As Rome expanded, Latin became the language of law, government, and education. Even after the Roman Empire fell, Latin influenced many modern languages like English, Spanish, French, and Italian. For example, the English word empire comes from the Latin imperium. Caesar's writings also played a big role. His books, like commentaries on the Gallic Wars, were studied for centuries, teaching people about history, leadership, and the power of words. Caesar showed that culture isn't just about art and language, it's also about ideas and values. So, who had a bigger cultural impact? It's hard to say. Alexander spread Greek ideas far and wide, creating a global culture that lasted for centuries. Caesar strengthened Roman culture, laying the foundation for modern Europe. Both leaders show us that culture is power. By spreading their languages, ideas, and values, they shaped the world in ways that still affect us today. Whether it's the Greek roots of science or the Latin roots of law, their legacies are everywhere. Now, let's learn some English words from their cultural impact. First, legacy, noun. What someone leaves behind after death. Alexander's legacy includes Hellenism. Second, philosophy, noun. The study of ideas about life and knowledge. Greek philosophy is still studied today. Third, architecture, noun. The art of designing buildings. Roman architecture inspired many styles. Fourth, language, noun. A system of communication. Latin influenced many modern languages. And fifth, values, noun. Important beliefs or principles. Both leaders spread their values through culture. Here's a useful phrase. Stand the test of time, last for a very long time. Greek and Roman culture has stood the test of time, and lay the foundation, create the basis for something. Caesar laid the foundation for modern Europe. Now, let's look at grammar. Notice how we use the past simple tense for their actions. Alexander spread Greek ideas. Caesar built roads. Simple, right? Next, we'll explore their tragic flaws. What mistakes did Alexander make? Why was Caesar assassinated? The answers might surprise you. And remember, every part of their stories teaches us new English words. Ready to continue? Let's go. Part 6. Tragic Flaws. Even the greatest leaders have flaws. Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar achieved incredible things, but their mistakes led to their downfalls. Let's start with Alexander. His biggest flaw? Ambition. Alexander wanted to conquer the entire world, and he pushed his army too hard. After 10 years of constant fighting, his soldiers were exhausted. They had marched across deserts, mountains, and rivers, far from their homes and families. When Alexander wanted to continue into India, his army refused. This was a huge blow to Alexander. He had always led by example, sharing his soldiers' struggles, but this time he didn't listen to their needs. His ambition blinded him. Alexander also struggled with anger and arrogance. After his best friend Clytus criticized him at a banquet, Alexander killed him in a fit of rage. He deeply regretted this later, but it showed how his emotions could control him. Alexander's health also suffered. He drank heavily and worked tirelessly, ignoring his body's limits. In 323 BC, at just 32 years old, he fell ill and died in Babylon. His death shocked the world. Without a clear heir, his empire quickly fell apart. Alexander's story teaches us that even the greatest leaders need balance. Ambition is important, but so is listening to others and taking care of yourself. Now, let's look at Julius Caesar. His biggest flaw was also ambition. Caesar wanted power, and he wasn't afraid to break the rules to get it. When the Senate ordered him to return to Rome without his army, he crossed the Rubicon River, starting a civil war. This made him many enemies. Even after becoming dictator for life, Caesar didn't stop. He introduced reforms to help the poor, but he also ignored the Senate's authority. This angered many senators, who saw him as a threat to the Republic. Caesar believed he was untouchable, but he was wrong. Caesar's overconfidence was his downfall. He ignored warnings about his safety, even from his friends. On March 15, 44 BC, the Ides of March, a group of senators stabbed him to death in the Senate. His last words, "Et tu, Brute," you too, Brutus, show his shock at being betrayed by someone he trusted. Caesar's death plunged Rome into chaos, leading to another civil war. His story teaches us that no one is invincible. Even the most powerful leaders need to be careful and listen to advice. So, what can we learn from their mistakes? Both Alexander and Caesar were driven by ambition, but they didn't know when to stop. Alexander's anger and arrogance cost him his army's loyalty, while Caesar's overconfidence cost him his life. Their stories remind us that leadership isn't just about power. It's also about humility, balance, and listening to others. Even the greatest leaders are human, and humans make mistakes. Now let's learn some English words from their tragic flaws. First, ambition, noun. A strong desire to succeed. Both leaders had too much ambition. Second, arrogance, noun. Too much pride. Alexander's arrogance hurt his relationships. Third, overconfidence, noun. Too much confidence. Caesar's overconfidence led to his death. Fourth, betrayal, noun. Breaking trust. Caesar's assassination was a betrayal. And fifth, balance, noun. A state of stability. Leaders need balance in their lives. Here's a useful phrase. Pride comes before a fall. Being too proud can lead to failure. Alexander and Caesar both learned this the hard way. And trust no one, a lesson Caesar learned too late. Now let's look at grammar. Notice how we use the past simple tense for their actions. Alexander pushed his army too hard. Caesar ignored warnings. Simple, right? Next, we'll focus on English. What language patterns can we learn from their stories? How can their words help us speak better English? The answers might surprise you. And remember, every part of their stories teaches us new English words. Ready to continue? Let's go. Part 7. English Learning Focus. Now that we've explored the lives of Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar, let's focus on English learning. Their stories are full of powerful words, phrases, and grammar patterns that can help you speak and write better English. Let's start with vocabulary. Here are 5 key words from their stories. First, conqueror, noun, someone who wins land or people by force. Both Alexander and Caesar were conquerors. Second, legacy, noun, what someone leaves behind after death. Their legacies still inspire us today. Third, strategy, noun, a plan to win or succeed. Caesar's strategies made him unstoppable. Fourth, philosophy, noun, the study of ideas about life and knowledge. Alexander learned philosophy from Aristotle. And fifth, reform, noun, a change to improve something. Caesar introduced many reforms in Rome. Next, let's look at useful phrases. Alexander once said, "I am not afraid of an army of lions led by a sheep. I am afraid of an army of sheep led by a lion." This teaches us about leadership. Caesar's famous phrase, "Veni, vidi, vici," I came, I saw, I conquered, shows confidence and success. Here's how you can use these ideas in English. Lead by example. Show others how to act by doing it yourself. And against all odds. Succeeding when it seems impossible. Try using these phrases in your own sentences. Now, let's focus on grammar. In their stories, we often use the past simple tense to talk about completed actions. For example, Alexander conquered Persia. Caesar crossed the Rubicon. This tense is simple and powerful. We also use the present perfect tense to talk about actions that still affect the present. For example, their ideas have influenced the world for centuries. Practice these tenses by describing your own achievements or experiences. Let's practice. Read these sentences out loud. Pay attention to the verb. Alexander conquered the known world by age 30. Or try this one. Caesar's reforms improved the lives of many Romans. Great job. Now let's review. What does legacy mean? Pause the video for 5 seconds. Okay. Legacy means what someone leaves behind after death. And what tense do we use for completed actions? Pause the video for 5 seconds. We use past simple. You're doing amazing. Finally, here's a challenge for you. Write a short paragraph about a leader you admire. Use at least 3 words or phrases from today's lesson. For example, Nelson Mandela was a great leader. He fought against all odds to unite South Africa. His legacy inspires millions. Share your paragraph in the comments. I'd love to read it. Remember, learning English is like building an empire. It takes time, effort, and strategy. But with every word you learn, you're one step closer to success. Thanks for joining me on this journey through history and language. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with fellow learners. Until next time, keep conquering English. And there you have it, the incredible stories of Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar. 2 legendary conquerors who changed the world in different ways. Alexander spread Greek culture across continents, while Caesar transformed Rome into an empire. Both were brilliant leaders, but their flaws remind us that no one is perfect. Their lives teach us about ambition, courage, and the power of ideas. And through their stories, we've learned new English words, phrases, and grammar patterns to help you speak and write better. Let's do a quick recap. Alexander led by example, inspiring his army with his courage and vision. Caesar used strategy and organization to build an empire that lasted centuries. Both left a lasting legacy, but their ambition and overconfidence led to their downfalls. Their stories show us that leadership isn't just about power. It's about balance, humility, and listening to others. Now it's your turn. Use the words and phrases you've learned today to talk about your own heroes or goals. For example, my teacher is a great leader. She always leads by example and helps us learn. Or, I want to leave a legacy of kindness. Share your sentences in the comments. I'd love to read them. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe to Learn English with Stories 365, and share it with your friends. Every click helps us create more content to help you learn English through amazing stories. And remember, learning English is like building an empire. It takes time, effort, and strategy, but every step brings you closer to your goals. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, keep conquering English.